Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. If you've never been an Audible customer and want to see what they offer, just go to www.audibletrial.com/Excelsior Journeys and browse the unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title for free and start listening. It's that easy. Why Audible? Audible content includes an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original audio shows, news, comedy, and more from the leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, and entertainers. And with this free 30-day trial, you'll have your pick of it all. You can hear books of all genres narrated by Jim Dale, Stephen Fry, Will Patton, Alex Hyde White, Jeff Brick, Neil Shaw, William Demerit, and even a few by me, George Sirois. So go to www.audibletrial.com/Excelsior Journeys and start your own 30-day journey with Audible today.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of the award-winning podcast Entrepreneurs on Fire, and you're listening to the Excelsior Journeys with George Sirois. Prepare to ignite.
Is there a burning desire within to share your creativity with the rest of the world? Do you insist on pursuing your passion by any means necessary? Then you are on an Excelsior journey, and you are not alone. Welcome back to Excelsior Journeys. My name is George Sirois. Thank you so much for being here for episode 30 of this podcast. It has been such a great time putting this together for all of you and sharing all these great stories with all these amazing people with you. This is not only a milestone regarding the amount of episodes that are out there now, but it's also a milestone regarding the amount of downloads. I noticed that we have just passed 1,500 downloads. So I want to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to these stories and to myself during these past several months. So, and if you're in the area, in the St. Louis area, I hope to see you on Saturday, April 27th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Barnes & Noble at West County Center. I will be there with my fellow Aloris Publishing author, Rebecca Jaycox. We will be signing copies of my books, Excelsior and Ever Upward, and she'll be signing copies of her book, The Other Inheritance and The Other Queen. Both of us are pretty deep into getting our part 3s done for our respective series, and we are really looking forward to meeting some new readers. And if you're there, also, any purchase will get you some coupons and samples from both Lush over at the West County Center and California Pizza Kitchen. So we have some great offers for you as well. So this is going to be a lot of fun. So with that in mind, let me just go ahead and say that those of you who may not who know me from childhood know that I have always been a fan of stand-up comedy. I know that his name is very much toxic these days, but at the same time, I grew up listening to Bill Cosby records. I grew up watching Bill Cosby himself. But at the same time, thankfully, he was not the only one that I was listening to. I was listening to the great one, George Carlin. You know, I was listening to his cassettes when I was growing up. I remember making a point to watch his HBO comedy hours, and for so many years, I would just recite different bits with my friends. It's always something that I believe to be the purest form of entertainment, because it's entertainment itself, like stripped down to the very core. You have the writer and performer there on the same stage with a very bare stage, mostly just a brick wall, and they're just standing there telling you what's on their mind and hoping to make you laugh. It is an incredible experience. Seeing stand-up comedy as a whole. And I've always had just an absolute love and respect for stand-up comedians for taking that plunge, for taking that chance on themselves and letting the world know that what they have to say matters. Now, it's always been something that I've wanted to take part in, but as soon as I even consider the idea of doing it myself, any thought in my head just immediately goes away. And all of a sudden I'm basically stuttering to no one in particular. So it's a real thrill when someone that I know gets up on stage and not only survives their trip on stage, but thrives. And that's what we have. That's what we'll be discussing this week with my guest, Robert Turo. Now, Robert and I know each other from Marymount Manhattan College. I believe he was a freshman when I was a sophomore. And during my sophomore year, around 1996, that was when he took the plunge and got up on stage at Stand Up New York on 79th and 78th and Broadway. 78th and Broadway.
Yes.
And he went up there for 8 minutes and killed. And I'm not just saying this because we had like a bunch of friends that were willing to support him, but the material he had was great. It was a lot of fun, and it was a real thrill to see him up there on stage. And knowing that years would pass and he would go on to not only continue on with stand-up, but also become an MC for different events and, go into radio with it. And it's just been a thrill watching him from afar evolve as in this wonderful world of stand-up comedy. So without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce my guest with us this week, Robert Turo. Robert, how are you?
I'm great after that introduction. Thank you. It's Saturday morning, and that's the most accolades I've received all week. So thank you.
Oh, hey, my pleasure. My pleasure, man. I mean, like I said, I remember, being 6 years old or so and listening to a George Carlin tape and just being absolutely mesmerized by the man, and going on and eventually, like when I was in college, actually seeing him live at the Beacon Theater was a major highlight of my life. And because he goes in and does his HBO special. I think it was called Back in Town, and he does a full hour, and then says his goodbyes and everything, walks off stage, and then about 30 seconds later or so comes back out on stage. All the cameras are off, and he says, "You guys paid, so you're going to get some more," and does another 45 minutes worth of material. And
that's incredible.
It just speaks to the man. Like, I mean, it was such a thrill, just being in his presence. And he really was, to me, he'll always be the greatest. So, and then you have like all these other comics that have come out and basically made their own mark in this world, and you're out there doing the same thing. So let us know, let my listeners know what exactly you're doing right now. What is the latest project you're working on?
Right now, I'm running a show here in Houston, Texas, that showcases some of the local talent that we have out here. It's a weekly show. We call it, it's a lame name, but it's Punchline Mondays. That was not our decision. But I run it with one of my friends and one of the best up-and-coming comics here in Houston. His name's Jeff Joe. And together we're Jeff Joe and Turo. And we both host it. We both, take turns going up there. And we also bring in some of Houston's funniest. We just had Andy Huggins, who was on America's Got Talent. He's been around since the 80s. He was one of the original Houston Outlaws of comedy with Bill Hicks and Sam Kinison.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, and he's a good friend of ours. And I in fact, used to drive – he doesn't have a car. I used to drive him to the Improv mics all the time. By the Improv, I mean like the Houston Improv, not like, improv. Like anybody give us a profession. No. But so we get some up and comers coming out there, and it's every week. It's free, and we get a nice little audience. It's what we call a boutique show because it is in a smaller venue, but it's packed out every week.
Fantastic.
In fact, Jeff and I can't even stand in the room. We have to get out of the room because there's no room for us to stand.
Wow. That is so cool. That is so cool that you're able to do that. So, so let's go back to the beginning here. Like, what was it about stand-up that just made you want to get up there and try it? Because I mean, like, there's so many people that can say like, oh, I can do that, and there are so many people that just heckle from from sitting down at their table and everything. But like if they get called up to the stage, they have no material. So
No.
like what is it that what is it about stand-up that just grabs you and makes you want to just be a part of it for all time?
Well, I mean, I started off doing theater and acting. That's actually how I ended up at Marymount Manhattan College, was through a theater scholarship. But when I was in theater, I always enjoyed doing humorous monologues. Nice. Because it was just me up there and just getting the crowd to laugh. It's just really addictive, and I really liked it. And then on top of that, I was watching Comedy Central had just kind of started, and they were showing stand-up comedy bits, kind of like MTV was showing videos. They would just show little 3 to 5 minute bits from different comics.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And it was really cool, and that's how I learned about Bill Hicks and Brian Regan and even Dave Chappelle. Way when he was like 19 years old, he had like a little 3-minute bit that I just thought was the funniest thing I ever saw in my life about picking a fight with a little person. It was really funny. And
definitely politically correct too.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to offend anybody. He doesn't say little person, but whatever. He can say whatever he wants. He's Dave Chappelle.
Right.
But I was enthralled with the idea that of going up and being able to say my words the way I want to. You said it's the writer and the performer. It's also the director up there as well.
Yeah,
because. A lot of what you do in stand-up, what is important that a lot of people that don't, when they're trying to start off, they don't realize blocking is important. You have to know where you're going to end and where you're going to be facing when you say each punchline. Wow. It's and some comics have more energy than others, but it's still important to know your blocking and to know where you're going to be facing and everything when you're doing your bits to get the maximum amount of laughs.
Right.
And that's always appealed to me. But the reality of it is what kicked me in the butt to get started was my roommate at the time, Jeff. He one day decided not to go into class. He decided to just drink, and he just started calling stand-up comedy clubs, saying that he was my agent trying to book me.
Wow.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened.
Holy crap.
Yeah. And Stand Up New York called back and said,
man.
And the first thing they did was the guy complained about our answering machine message because we were two 18-year-old idiots that basically recorded like half of a Simpsons episode for our outgoing message. And the guy was all like, listen, guys, first things first, that is the worst message. You can't have that. It's so long, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, if this Robert Turo is serious, we'll bring him up here. And I was all like, whoa. And Jeff was all like, there you go. I get 10%. And I'm all like, okay. 10% of nothing is...
still nothing, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that's exactly how that started.
Wow.
I had just basically, mentioned, in college conversation that I would like to do stand-up. I never really thought I'd actually do it until he just decided one day that I was going to do it.
That's fantastic. And it really shows, like, I mean, there's so many people that can say that, that this wouldn't have happened if this person hadn't just kind of given me that nudge. I was saying just a few weeks ago on the show that when I was talking with the current Missouri Writers Guild president, Robin Tidwell, I wouldn't have been the vice president and then later president of the Missouri Writers Guild, if she hadn't volunteered me for that position and said, oh, he can do it. And all of a sudden it was just like, well, what am I doing? Well, you're running a conference and it's next year, so you have this much time to make that happen. So good luck.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So do you think like if Jeff hadn't done that, do you think that, that this might not have happened, or is it something that you feel like you would have just at some point gotten around to doing anyway?
To be honest with you, I probably would have gotten around to doing it. The thing is back then, he and I didn't understand, really none of us understood the concept of what an open mic was, which is where you're really supposed to start.
Yeah.
What we thought to do was just hound these comedy clubs, these prestigious comedy club, Caroline's,
yeah.
and they couldn't care less. They were like, who in the hell are you?
Right.
Get out of, stop calling. We didn't understand that, oh, maybe we should go, like a poetry open mic or something like that to get started.
Yeah.
I lived in New York for a while and was doing that, but I think I eventually moved to Austin, Texas, and I think somewhere around there I probably would have ended up trying it out there if I hadn't have done it in New York first. I'm sorry.
Talk about going into the deep end as well. Like, I mean, just New York.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it was just like, here you go.
Yeah.
And it's like if you don't drown at some point, you learn how to swim. So.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny that you were saying about my material killing because in retrospect, and I know all of my material from back then, and that, I mean, like, I wouldn't wipe my butt with that material, man. Like, I hate that. I think that stuff is so corny and so silly. I mean, for God's sakes, I was talking about Scooby-Doo,
yep.
and McDonald's food, and I mean, I was making really what now would be considered hacky jokes, but thank you. I really appreciate I wish you could see me now. I think you would be much more impressed.
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, like, it's at the same time, it was just, I mean, this was straight out of Fame. Like, this was Ralph Garcia getting on the mic and everything, all of a sudden, just going out there. But the great thing is that, opposite of Ralph Garcia, you actually were able to continue on with it and evolve with it. So take us to that moment that it's Stand Up New York. It's 1996 and it really, from what I remember, the place was packed. There were a lot of people.
It was.
So
you want to know well, I'll tell you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but just a little interesting tidbit about that day. It was March 2nd, which was the day George Burns passed away.
Oh, that's right.
So
that's right. Wow.
I was doing my first stand-up ever the day George Burns passed away.
Wow.
So I kind of always felt that the comedy gods or something were kind of opening a door for me.
Yeah.
In that
incredible.
sense.
Wow.
And I'm not going to lie, that night on stage was one of 2 times I was ever nervous on stage.
Really?
Ever. Yes. And the only other time I was ever nervous on stage was when I was performing to get into colleges, like for I had to do like some monologues for auditioning. And that was the first time I was ever nervous on stage. And the second time I was ever nervous on stage was my first stand-up. And I've never been nervous since. That feeling that I got that night of the laughter was, I mean, it was more addictive than anything I've ever experimented with in my life. And that's why I keep going back to it. And to be honest with you, what is it, 23 years later? The feeling is still, I just did a show last night and, there wasn't very many people in the crowd, but every laugh, it was the same. It's the same effect. It makes me like just I don't know, it just charges me up, and um, it's great, and so that's why I keep doing it, and I keep going at it, and I'm happy with where I'm at right now. I mean, obviously, I'd like to keep growing, but I mean, this is a profession that takes a long time. Nobody's ever going to get up and immediately be amazing. That's never going to happen, and that's what a lot of people get in their heads when they first start. The worst mistake anybody makes when they want to start doing stand-up is they go, "Oh, I'm just going to go up there and just kind of riff off the top of my head." I'm like, no, you're not. You're going to bomb so hard that ISIS people were going to change their minds about their. That's how bad you're going to bomb.
Yeah.
It's true,
Oh man! So, what's your? I've gotten like different thoughts and everything from stand-up comics, just listening to their own comments and everything regarding things like YouTube. Like people that are just like just recording, acts and everything with their phone. You feel like that's kind of like almost like an invasion of privacy or something, because like when you're on those stages, a lot of times they're just like, you're just kind of working out material. It's not going to be great. It's not like you said, it's not going to kill the first time around, but it could be something that could evolve into something really good. What are your thoughts on people that do that?
Well, I personally, in fact, we just, with the show at the Axelrad that we do here in Houston, the Axelrad is the bar, and the owners of the bar, they wanted to stream our comedy show, and a lot of comics were very hesitant and very against that for that very reason. Me personally, I think in this day and age, I mean, if you're being filmed, just do the best you can. And, I mean, because any kind of, video that gets out there, any kind of promotion, that's going to be good for you. Right. I mean, but a lot of people are afraid that, they're going to exhaust their material, that sort of thing. And I think that's a little ridiculous. I mean, like, yes, Dave Chappelle is going to exhaust his material because millions of people try to watch him. Right. You literally, I mean, a lot of these comics that I deal with, I'm like, if there's a room of 100 people, how many people in there have actually heard you before? 5, maybe, right. So you're not, it's not like you're really, going to exhaust, you can use your material over and over again. And that's what you got to do. It's a fine line, and I get why a lot of comics, it's like you said, I mean, if you're working on something and it's not there, but to me, I mean, you got to pick and choose those times when you're working on something. You know what I mean? Like, if you're doing a show for, a sold out show somewhere, I mean, even at the Axelrad, and I mean, granted, a packed room is 60 people. I mean, that's not a good time to just start working on new material. Like, that's when you should be doing your A stuff to get the, crowd into it. But some other comics, they believe that, any time is a good time to work on new material, and that's fine if that's what you want to do. But, with the cameras on the phones and everything these days, I mean, you're going to be filmed, and that's just all there is to it. Years ago, I actually was doing a comedy competition in Los Angeles at a place called the Ha Ha Cafe. And right before I was going to go up, Damon Wayans did a drop-in and did 45 minutes. And some girl started filming him, and he lost his mind and was yelling at this girl to stop. And she wouldn't. She just kept saying, "This is for personal use only." He's like, "Yeah, how do I know that? I don't know you, And I get what he's doing because he's practicing for his special that he wants to be fresh and new. And, I mean, so I get that. And I get what his complaint was. But, I mean, a lot of these comics that are, at my level out here, I think they really need to relax on it. And especially with this day and age. And a lot of comedians that are coming up, they're coming up because they're filming themselves. and they're putting their videos out there,
Yeah.
you know, and that's just how it is. That's just the new way now, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
So
a lot
social
of
media is playing such a big role. Yeah.
absolutely. It's a huge thing. So now I mean, and on top of that, I mean, you've got, one of the most successful stand-up comedy live shows. It's called Chocolate Sundays out of the Laugh Factory in Los Angeles. They put out
I heard about that.
snippets. Yeah, they put out snippets of, and I mean, we're talking Kevin Hart. You know, I mean, like they put all that stuff out. So, you know, I mean, I just think that a lot of comics need to. Are you a baseball fan?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. You know how everybody's doing these infield shifts now, and some people are complaining about it? Well, I'm one of those people that says, hey, man, you need to adjust then. If they're all going to that side, then you need to start hitting over there. You know, that's what I say to comics, too. I'm all like, if everybody's filming you, then you need to adjust to that. And stop,
it's kind of like,
and stop whining and acting like I deserve, like, my privacy. No, you don't. You got up on stage. You're talking. If they're going to film you, you need to be prepared for it.
yeah, I know, like you had just mentioned baseball, but it's kind of like the mindset that people have regarding, say, like the New England Patriots. How, you know, like they're just saying, like, oh, they're just running up the scoreboard against them. Well, stop them.
Right.
You know, stop them from running up the scoreboard. You know, like,
adjust.
Problem solved.
That's why you have halftime, so you can adjust.
Right.
You know, and stop that.
Right.
That's the whole point of the game.
Exactly.
And that's exactly how I feel about, you know, with the new social medias and stuff. And I'm telling you, there's some comics here in Houston that, I mean, they are insanely successful, and it's because of social media. And it's because they post, I mean, they do sketches and skits and whatever the hell you want to call it, which, you know, I mean, that's fun and dandy and all, but, like, you know, they also put up, you know, like, you know, and it's not like whole sets. It's just like, here's a, you know, a gag. Here's a joke that I wrote, you know, and stuff like that. And they also do it on Twitter too. Like they'll just write, you know, a joke. And then next thing I know, I hear it for the next 6 months, you know, like I was like, yeah, because, you know, I see them every week, you know, and I'm like, okay, yeah. It's a great gag about your mother-in-law. Okay, wonderful.
It's I'm speaking of social media, like I'm seeing a lot of different comics that are kind of doing what you're saying. Like they're posting stuff on Twitter, but they're also doing things like Instagram. Like I seeing who is it, Kate Quigley, you know, as huge as she is on Instagram. You know, like what she's doing is great because she's taking her own, you know, material and visualizing it, you know, and that's a great way to do it. So like and then, you know, like, and then adding, and then putting in like little videos every now and then of her act. So that sort of thing, like that's a great way to utilize social media, you know.
I agree.
Yeah. So so you have that moment. You have, you know, like you have your 8 minutes, right, on at Stand Up New York.
Honestly, I think it was only 5.
Really?
If I remember correctly, yes. I don't remember exactly the time. I want to say it was maybe 6. I honestly don't know. I mean, I have the video on videotape somewhere. I just have not. I cringe when I even think of that video because I just even the way I was dressed and wearing a bowling shirt and a jacket, like I just looked silly. But, you know, like, I want to say it was about 5 or 6 minutes. I can't remember. 8 minutes would have been, I think that would have been too long.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have that moment. You have, you know, like the experience on stage. You get the laughs because I know I heard them, and you know, like I was in there laughing along with them. So so what, you know, like what was it that kind of got you thinking like, okay, I can keep doing this? Like, was it that sort of that rush of getting those first laughs that really got you going from like one gig to the next?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was definitely that. I mean, the laughter was enormous. And then the fact that, and I don't know if you know this, but there was 33 people there to see me.
Yeah.
and I was required to only bring 7.
Wow.
So the club owner, when he saw that, I mean, he treated me like a superstar because he was like, holy crap, this guy brought 33 people. Hello. Well, come back next week.
Yeah.
And I was like, absolutely, I'll be here next week. And I came back the next week and I brought 14 people.
Mm-hmm.
And he was still very impressed and very happy and gave me like some money out of it and everything. And he was all like, how about next week? And I was all like, you got it. And I came back the next week with 4 people. And he was all like, I require that you bring 7. And I'm all like, oh. He's all like, I'll let you slide this time, but next time, why don't you try to bring more people? Well, the 4th time, I ended up bringing nobody. Nobody wanted to come. And I ended up barking outside for about an hour, and I got 5 or 6 Hasidic Jews to come inside. and the club manager walks out and he's all like, Turo, and I'm all like, yeah, and he's all like, those Hasidic Jews say they're friends of yours. And I'm like, uh-huh. He's like, really? I go, sure, why not? And he's all like, okay, whatever you say.
Right.
And he just walked back in. He knew immediately. Like I know that I just begged. I was like, please, guys, please, you gotta come in. You gotta let me go on stage. They're gonna take my thumbs if you don't. These guys, okay,
right.
Whatever they were about to do, they're fine. They went inside and they whatever. So
hey, as long as I had fun,
yeah, exactly. But that was my last time at the Stand Up New York because I knew I wasn't. He kept inviting me, but I was like, man, I can't do that anymore. Like, I can't, like these bringer shows, And after that, I ended up moving to Austin, which was much easier place to do stand-up comedy. But at that point, I became obsessed with Andy Kaufman.
Oh, yeah.
And so what I was doing was I discovered an open mic, but what I realized was that these guys kept doing the same material week in and week out, not realizing that they were practicing that material. I just kept thinking like, why? Well, I just heard this last week. Why am I hearing it? To me, I just wanted to do something different every time. So I just did the stupidest stuff. Like I would stage fights. I would just come up with all this, outside the box kind of jokes and comedy bits that I would try to do at these open mics, and it really irritated a lot of the Austin comics. They were like, oh, here's this train wreck, holy crap, and I would just all kinds of just weird what is known as alternative comedy, like Dimitri Martin kind of stuff.
Oh yeah,
just
very
dry,
kind of thing.
alt comedy. Yeah, just dry and just and like I said, I was staging fights and just weird shit, that just didn't make much sense. It just made me and my stoner friends laugh, and like nobody else. Wow. And so, I did that for a few years, and I ended up moving to Los Angeles. Because I had promises of being a screenwriter, which fell flat very fast. And I kind of got disenchanted with the whole Hollywood thing, and I was just really mad. And I'd been doing background work on TV and movies, and I just hated it. The more and more I was doing film, the more I was like, I really hate this. I really hate this shit. Yeah. And a friend of mine I was working with, he was talking about doing stand-up comedy, and he had been taking classes and stuff. And I was like, you know what? Why don't I just join you, and I'll just go up and do some stuff, with you. And that way we, we're buddies and everything. Right. And we just kind of make each other laugh. And that guy his name's Mikey McKernan, and he and I ended up going around and just doing a lot of rooms, and we ended up, a room fell into our lap. It was, really? And yeah, every Tuesday they let us have the bar, and it was in North Hollywood at the Universal Bar and Grill on Lancashire.
Oh wow.
Every Tuesday, and we called it Turbo Tuesdays after me,
Yeah.
Turo. Turbo Tuesdays, and it was a showcase. We didn't let just anybody go up there. And it was many people call it like the toughest room, and a lot of comics liked doing it because it was such a challenge, because you were dealing with bikers and all kinds of just loud, scuzzy people that would just not listen to you.
Yeah.
And if you could get the crowd laughing, then you were doing a good job.
Right.
And so that went on for about 3 years. And then I moved, and then Mikey, he kept it going for a long time. He finally put it to rest last year, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And deservedly so. Running a mic by yourself is very hard, and I feel bad that I had to leave him like that, but I had no choice. I had to come back home to Houston,
Yeah.
For a few undisclosed reasons. But he's now probably the most famous open micer in Los Angeles. I know that he doesn't pride himself in that, but Turbo Tuesdays is, I mean, we had like some big time people. Hannibal Buress actually came through.
Really? Wow.
Yes. Let's see, Dean Del Rey, who's up and coming right now. Maria Bamford came and performed on our stage. Yeah. Sammy Obeid, like these guys, these are people that, like, I mean, Maria Bamford, obviously. And Burris. But Dean Del Rey and Sammy Obeid both are, I mean, if you guys have not heard of them, I highly recommend them. They're two of the smartest comics out there right now. They were both on Conan recently. We had one of the, I don't think she does it anymore, but she was the Sprint girl for the longest time. She did all the Sprint commercials, and she came out and did some stand up for us. She was funny. She was cute. It was nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that was Turbo Tuesdays. It was just it was funny because there was other comics that just absolutely, they would walk in and go, no thanks, and like turn around and walk out, and then we would get a lot of newcomers too, because me and Mikey both worked in restaurants, and everybody in restaurants are trying to break into the entertainment industry somehow. And again, they get that, oh, I can do stand-up comedy. Oh no, my friends told me I'm funny. And we're like, great.
Oh, yeah.
Bring all of your friends
right
to the show, and we'll put you up at the end, after they see me and Mikey and all of our friends, and then you can go up, and then we'll see how that goes. And which is exactly what happened my first show that you were at. If you notice, I was the last one there. It was because I brought so many people. They wanted to put all their people up first before I went, because if I went first, you guys would have all started to leave.
Right.
So,
yeah, I get it. I was looking forward to just like watching the entire show, just because I'm a stand-up comic fan. So, I totally get that. Like people would start, asking for the check, and then, and then they're trying to figure out, like who's paying for, like how many drinks, and like all of a sudden, like the room is just shot to hell, So, so with that in mind, like you've performed stand-up New York, like in New York, you did, you were in LA, you're in Texas and everything. So, did you do any other sort of like, traveling or anything like on the road with comic?
I actually performed in the World Series of Comedy 2017. I got 8th place out of Chattanooga. That was in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The funny thing about that was the comedy club was on this big strip with bars and restaurants. And at the very end of the strip was the very beginning of the Trail of Tears. that the Native Americans went on. As how ironic is that? Have a good laugh and then tour the Trail of Tears after this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because this is the last time you'll be laughing.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
How fitting, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was all like, wow, there's a big giant historical marker like, this is the very beginning of the Trail of Tears.
Oh, man.
I'm like, okay, well, let's go have a couple of laughs first, and then we'll be on our way.
Yep.
So let's see, Chattanooga. I performed Philadelphia. I've performed obviously all around Texas, Dallas, Austin. I've actually never done San Antonio, and they actually have a pretty vibrant scene. I just have not gotten out that far yet. Mm-hmm. I've done a few smaller towns here, McAllen and stuff like that here in Texas. Let's see, I've Louisiana. I performed a few different spots. Actually, one spot was in a very small town. I want to say like Boudreaux or something very Cajun name. Mm-hmm. And literally half the town was at the show. The other half was at the town carnival. So yeah, it was very bizarre. Like we were out in the downtown area and it was just absolutely dead. And I'm like, well, it's a Friday night. Where is everybody? And they're like, well, they're either here or they're at the carnival. I'm like, wow, okay. Because the whole rest of the place looked like a ghost town.
Yeah.
Let's see, where else have I? That's pretty much it. San Francisco, I did a lot of performing out there. That was always when I lived out in Los Angeles. Me and Mikey, we would always take a week and go up to San Francisco. Very friendly, very interesting spots. We actually did a show in a laundromat.
Really?
Yeah. This is a place called The Brainwash. It was a laundromat / cafe. And they, every Wednesday, every Wednesday they had one of the biggest comedy shows in town. And we got invited to do that. And that was a lot of fun.
Wow. It's not like a working laundromat like during those hours, though.
No, absolutely. There were people. Really? Absolutely, yes. They were absolutely doing that.
Oh man.
Yeah. I mean, there's people ordering sandwiches, folding clothes, doing all the, and they're listening. I mean, they also had like a crowd too that was like sitting. On the inside, like there's an area where you can sit, like for the cafe and everything, and they would all hang out there, and that's where you perform. But the washateria part was definitely open.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing that they would still keep. I guess like if they're running a business and everything, they got to keep it going. That's. So,
I don't know if you've ever spent much time in San Francisco, but that is the stonedest town I've ever been in my entire life.
Really?
I mean, oh my God, everybody. I mean, you got the bums sitting there smoking joints, asking you for money. Wow. Like, dude, you have a joint in your hand.
Right. Obviously, you had to get that somewhere.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, it just flows free. Yeah. And one of the stories I tell on stage, this is kind of become like, it's probably going to be the title of my album if I ever come out with one. I was doing a show at this one, it was kind of like a restaurant, like an Italian restaurant place, and it was packed. And the guy kept asking me my name. He's like, dude, what's your name? And I'm all like, it's Robert Turo. And he's all like, man, I'm never going to remember that, man. I'm like, okay. I guess I'll write it down for you, So I wrote it down. And I don't know if this is just, my bad chicken scratch handwriting or what, but the guy goes up on stage, and I'm telling you, he didn't even bat an eyelash. He just goes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, the very funny Robot Turd, everybody. Robot Turd. And I'm like, I mean, seriously, for about a minute there, I went, wow, this is San Francisco. What a bunch of weird people. Robot Turd. Who names himself Robot Turd? I got to see this. Crap. I'm Robot Turd.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So I tell that story on stage a lot, and it's kind of a thing. Like especially when I was out in LA. Like I usually go out there about once a year, and like no doubt somebody will be like, "Hey, Robot Turd." Like, hey, it's me.
Hey, it's a good way to be known. Like I guess.
Yeah.
Whatever sticks. And So you said that you go to LA, once a year and everything. Are there any specific venues that you just kind of like that are like bucket list venues? Just like I would love to, perform there.
The only place that I have not performed at in Los Angeles that I want to perform really badly is the Laugh Factory. That's just and the biggest reason why I never got on there was in order to get onto their little open mic thing that they have, you had to spend like all day Tuesday, and we already had our show on Tuesday. So like I could never like, I could never, I don't know, come up with a reason to skip my own show to be, even though it was, the Laugh Factory, and I always wanted to be on it. I was just like, I'm sorry, my show comes first, But I did the Improv. I did the Comedy Store many, many times. Did every stage on there. I actually ran a Friday night show once in the Belly Room, which is if you saw one of Dave Chappelle's last specials, that was in the Belly Room of the Comedy Store. And that was always a thrill. I mean, like, the Comedy Store was always a lot of fun. I always recommend that to the comedians because the Comedy Store, like, no matter what, they always treat you well. And you don't, once you are known that you're a comic, even if you're not very good, once the door people know that you're a comic, you can just come and go as you please. Just walk in. I mean, like, we were walking through the kitchen, like going up to the green room. Oh yeah. All the time. And I would go in and watch Mark Maron for an hour, just talking about nothing, and just, and you want to talk about somebody working on their set. I mean, I would see him, and he'd be there like every night of a week, and I would just go in and sit there and watch him. The drop-ins are, I mean, like, every, stand-up comic that you can think of. I mean, I sat there and watched Amy Schumer work on material she was hosting something like the Grammys or the Emmys or something a couple of years back. And just watched her come in and practice her set. For that, I watched Chris Tucker came in out of nowhere and just did like 45 minutes of literally just telling great stories of other celebrities. Like, he didn't even have any material. He was just telling like real stories about like Robert De Niro and just people, different celebrities, really funny. I always recommend anybody that wants to be a comedian, hang out at the Comedy Store. You're guaranteed to see just magic somewhere, whether it's the Belly Room, the main room, the original room, whatever. So that's what I say. That's my Mecca out there in Los Angeles, the comedy Mecca.
Yeah. I've heard like so many great stories about the Comedy Store. So like it's great to hear that it's it's a legend that lives up to its name, as it has. So are there any sort of like bucket list comics or something that you would just love to work with or introduce or something?
Brian Regan. I just have to shake that guy's hand. He's definitely, to me, just one of the unsung heroes of stand-up comedy. Somebody that has the right amount of material and energy. His energy is just insane. And I got to see him for the first time ever last year. And it was he just didn't disappoint. It was amazing.
Nice.
So I was very thrilled and happy to do that. But the most amazing comic that I've ever seen work live was Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, he's one of seriously a handful of people in the history of the universe that could read something like, somebody's tax return and make it hilarious.
Nice.
He can read the telephone book, just naming off names, and just be hilarious. And when I saw him, he literally just did 2 hours of and it never at any point seemed like he was working on material or trying anything. It just literally was like what was on his mind right then and there. I mean, there's a lot of comics that you watch and you like, and they're funny, but you can tell that they're doing material. You can tell they're working on stuff. You were talking about Bill Cosby having, like a poisonous name. Louis C.K.'s kind of the same.
Yeah.
I mean, I always thought he was very funny. I mean, I think what happened to him kind of deserved, but not. I mean, he wasn't like Bill Cosby bad, obviously. I mean, at least he asked these women, permission.
He did it anyway, but still,
he did it anyway. But he at least
it's one of those things.
kind of gave them like an option of, hey, you can get the hell out of the room, kind of thing, and whatever. But like he and Chappelle just to me have that ability of just literally looking like they just came up with that shit right then and there. And it's uncanny. Whereas somebody say like I mean Carlos Mencia, who's always been accused of stealing jokes. I don't know, I always feel like he's doing material anyway. Like that's that what I mean? Like Dane Cook the same way. Like I just feel like I never felt like they were being genuine or what I mean? Like not to take away, like I'm sure they're funny, and they are. But
they just go into this act like they have to be like on all the time.
Right. And you can tell that they've practiced it. You can tell that they, and they went off because somebody, used a trigger word or whatever. Whereas Dave Chappelle, I'm telling you he was already making you laugh before he even walked on the stage. He was, waving, or just the way he, waves and stuff like that. So I would love to work and talk with him. In fact, we have a joke we always do, me and Jeff do, at the Axelrad, when we're trying to get people to come upstairs and tell them the show. We were like, we got some famous comics, folks. In fact, Dave Chappelle just called us. His plane landed in Arizona. He won't be here tonight, but we say that every time.
That's so cool. So, so speaking of, like running shows and everything, what happened with that opportunity to, what was that opportunity and everything that got you to transition from like just a, stand-up comic to stand-up comic and MC?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, it's when you're doing stand-up comedy, when you're just a stand-up comic, you're kind of at, the will of the show promoters. And a lot of people, I mean, you've got these comics that aren't very good, but they will go to every single show runner and just bug them to death. Let me on your show. Let me on your show. Put me on your show. And that's how they get on. And then there's others that are more talented that feel that that's, kind of crossing a line. But then they see the less talented guys on these other shows and they go, well, that's not fair. How is that guy up there? I'm way funnier than that guy. And you're like, that's true. But he bugged them to get on that stage. Me personally, I wanted to take control of the situation. not have to be at the will of the showrunners, but to have my own show. And what I discovered was having my own show gives me a certain amount of power to where other people who run shows want to put me on without me having to ask, because they want on my show.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So that's definitely what was the transition. That's when I said, okay, it went from being an actor that didn't want a writer or director, wanted to be his own writer and director, to being a comedian who didn't want to have to deal with showrunners, but rather be his own showrunner.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's very painfully obvious when you come and see me and Jeff, because Jeff and I will do as long of material as we both want, regardless of how long. I mean, we tell everybody else they have 10 minutes, but we'll go. I mean, I've seen, oh my God, Jeff, he'll talk until the rats leave the room. Like he does not care. I mean, I at least will okay, you guys have had enough. Because I'm very loud, I'm very boisterous, but Jeff, and I love him, don't get me wrong, I love Jeff, but he will talk until even if the drunk is passed out, he'll keep talking until that guy finally wakes up in the room. Like he will, just the other night, he was supposed to, he was just like, okay, folks, y'all, thank you so much for sticking around, and then ended up doing 45 minutes.
Wow.
After all of that, just because it's our show and we can, and nobody's gonna yell at us. So that's why I got into being a showrunner. And on top of that, I really love watching new comics that have real talent prosper.
Yeah.
And for instance, there's a girl, she did her first time ever on our show, Colleen Genevieve, and she's now up in New York and she's killing it. She's booked all the time, but her first ever stand-up was on our show. And I knew right away when I watched her that she had some serious talent. Like, she was very funny. She knew, I mean, she wasn't perfect, but I could see that she got it, you know. She didn't go up there and do the same thing that like everybody, they do the same. They always go, hey, anybody here remember Transformers? Huh? You know, like dude, yeah, we all remember Transformers, idiot. You know, like, come on.
I've always been afraid of being that guy. You know, just being absolutely dry, wanting so badly to get up on that stage and then having nothing. You know, absolutely everything just completely shut down. So, you know, just the fact that you're out there doing it, you know, that means the world to me, because what you're doing is exactly what you're saying. You're keeping the industry going, you know, by not only doing it yourself, but also allowing this great venue for other people to do the same thing. So it was it from that got you also involved in radio?
No, that's what I'm wondering about that. I don't really know what you're talking about. I've done a few radio.
I could have sworn you've done like radio as well. So
no, I've done a few interviews with Outlaw Dave here in Houston, but that is really about it. The only reason I'm thinking you might have thought that is because I think you and I actually in college talked about the radio station at Marymount, Manhattan.
Probably.
That's the only thing I can think. I was like, where did he get this radio thing from? I did public access television in Austin. That was a sketch comedy show.
Oh, gotcha.
But and that was just that was a lot of fun. But it aired for years on Austin Public Access, and I kind of I don't like to show my face in Austin too much because of that. Because people started recognizing me, and they're like, "Hey, you know," and it's always some stoner idiot that, you know, was up at 3 a.m. watching Public Access. Yeah, hey, you're that guy on that show, Free Beer. You know, I'm like, yeah. I'm not insanely proud of Free Beer. I mean, we had some fun. In fact, the best and probably only compliment we ever got on that show was nice editing. that was because the other guy that produced the show, he went to school for editing. So that was,
well, there you go.
yeah.
Nice to know that that the tuition, paid off,
Mm-hmm.
with that. So with everything that you're doing now and everything, what is it that what's what's some sort of like a project that you really want to work on next?
Honestly, I would like to we're working, me and Jeff are working with the Axelrad, because we do like the idea of streaming a show and having a streaming show, a weekly streaming show that people all across the country can watch. You don't have to come here to Houston to come see it. So that's basically like that's our next challenge, is to figure out how to make that a feasible, viable situation. And we got a lot of kinks to work out with that. I mean, right now, what they do, and I think it's very interesting, is because the show is upstairs at this place. They film it, but they it's just a live stream that goes downstairs to all the TVs. So, and they have like a lot of, great stuff. And they actually have like the ability to stream it like on the internet, but we got to get, permission from all the comics, make sure everybody's on board. But that is definitely on the horizon. We definitely want to do some sort of a internet live show that people all across the world really could watch and see and see that Houston really has some of the most talented comics in the world. So
fantastic. Yeah. So what are your most what are your recent like upcoming dates? Where can listeners, hopefully in the Texas area and everything, where can they find you?
They can find me every Monday at the Axelrad on Alabama. If you know anything about Houston, everybody knows the Axelrad. We'll be there every Monday. The shows are at 8:00. I will be performing April 27th at Shamrock's Pub in Humble, Texas. I'll be hosting that show up there, and then I should be hosting at the Joke Joint. That's here in Houston. I should be doing a full month of that here coming up, and I'm not sure if that's in May or June yet. But look out for definitely check out the Joke Joint on Facebook and everything. Ken Reed runs an excellent comedy room there. They're only building. They just built a second stage, so they're doing some great stuff there. And that's pretty much what I have booked for now.
Nice. And where can they find you? Where can my listeners find you on social media?
Right now, I definitely recommend Instagram at Robert Turo and at Punchline Mondays. That's the show that I do with Jeff Joe, and you're gonna that's where I highly recommend everybody. You can also find me on Twitter at Rob Turo, but it's really just a repeat of everything I do on Instagram. So
nice. And oh man, I've had so much fun chatting with you, man. I'm so glad that you're able to do this. Thank you so much again.
Pleasure's all mine, man. Thank you
for being a part of this. And I hope that all of you out there have felt just as inspired and motivated as I have, listening to Robert, listening to every other guest that I've had on these episodes. It's been a terrific 30 episodes so far, and we, with the upcoming evolution of this podcast into Winding Trails Media and Winding Trails Entertainment in the coming weeks, it's only good stuff from here on in. So I hope that all of you kind of have a person who recognizes your potential and actually does that little shoving up, up for you, because that's really not only going to give you that extra push that you need, but it's also going to save you a lot of time, in terms of getting yourself up there. So I just just hope that all of you have that kind of support system. If you don't, you have it here. And I really hope that all of you have really enjoyed this episode. I hope you've enjoyed just this whole show going back to October, and I hope you just keep on coming. You can find me on Instagram at George Sirois, Sirois, the same handle as Twitter. You can find me on Facebook. You can find the show basically like everywhere on social media. And if you are enjoying the show, I hope you subscribe. I hope you like. I hope you comment, and I hope you share to really kind of sow the earth with what we have in store for everyone. So, for Robert Turo, this is George Sirois saying to all of you, ever upward. We'll see you next week.